It's not by chance part of the Salvation Army. I don't think he appreciated that very much.
Well, there are quasi-military organizations. Civil Air Patrol springs to mind, and Civil Air Patrol does a wonderful job in reducing the amount of money spent on search and rescue by helping the Air Force. Civil Air Patrol being an official civilian auxiliary of the Air Force, and they do a wonderful job in search and rescue. They do a wonderful job in teaching the youth of the country about aviation and aviation jobs and opportunities, and they use military rank, and they wear modified Air Force uniforms, but everybody knows that the Civil Air Patrol is a civilian auxiliary of the United States Air Force. Korff originally was trying to promote this organization as something real in the world that was out fighting terrorism and all kinds of evil, and as he's pressed, he keeps modifying the explanation of what it is.
Well, so, one of the most amazing things I have seen recently, and I know that you're very familiar with it, there is a website that was literally devoted to exposing Korff, called Kal Korff is an Idiot, which is out of the Czech Republic, okay, where Korff is living now. Incidentally, living there, so I am told by very knowledgeable sources, he had to get basically out of the United States to save his own behind from numerous lawsuits that are currently awaiting him here. This is what I've been told. Do I know that for an absolute 100% fact? No, but the person that told me, I'm fairly certain was very much on the money. But be that as it may, recently up on Facebook, where Korff has taken a lot of his activities, he claimed that he just came from the Indian, Afghanistan, and Pakistan border, where he was over there, I guess, eating dinner with the troops and what have you. He had a number of photographs, Kevin, and I'm going to let you basically explain what it looked like to you, and then I'll chime in. But that didn't look like he was actually over there in the Near East, did it?
What he claimed was he was involved with military operations, wargaming that the military conducts frequently. And there's pictures of him in his wargaming costumes, if you will. But the weapons they were using were paintball guns. And I don't know of any military organization that trains with paintballs, and anybody who thinks about it for a moment can understand why you wouldn't train with a paintball. And some of his comrades in arms are wearing the kinds of headgear that you use in paintball games and the kind of chest protection that you use in paintball games. It's very clear that they were not engaged in any kind of military activity. They were engaged in paintball games, and he tried to elevate this into some kind of military training exercise that he was involved in fact, commanded part of. And that's kind of the thing. If you and I went out and played paintball, we'd say, hey, we went out and played paintball, and it was a great deal of fun. Kal Korff tells us, I went out, I was engaged in military operations, and I was doing this properly, and even his discussion of the tactics that they used are clearly paintball tactics and something you wouldn't use in a military operation. He was saying, well, he didn't really believe in sniper operations. He was more of a run and gun type guy. And I'm thinking, do you understand snipers at all? They're like 1,000 yards away. You with your little paintball gun's not going to do anything with them, and they're going to pick you off. If you show yourself for 2 seconds, they're going to pick you off, and you're not going to know where the shot came from. And he was explaining the tactics and how some Indian, and when I say Indian, I mean someone from the subcontinent, India, who had been trained in this, was saying that she found his tactics to be very, very, very unique, very modern. And we find out that this woman who was discussing it turns out to be a civilian who was engaged in pistol competition or rifle competition with other civilians in India, and she may have been a high school student or a college student involved in this. Had no training as a sniper, had no training in the military at all. So anything Korff said sounded good to her. But the whole thing is he pretending to be a military officer engaged in these activities to suppress terrorism, when in fact all he's doing is trying to prove to some people how brilliant he really is.
Well, Kevin, I'll tell you, it's it's a ludicrous thing. I do have a number of other people that want to chime in here prior to the round table. Do you have any closing remarks or comments you'd like to make?
Well, I wanted to. You had played a little bit of the scandals of Kevin Randle, and I just wanted to point out. You know, I've looked at a couple of these, and in one of them he says, for example, that he reads a portion of one of my books, and it says in the book that Bill Brazel, the son of the man who discovered the flying saucer, had been living in Albuquerque, and he read about his father in the newspaper, the front page of the newspaper, and he went down to Corona to help his father out. Korff reads this, says read in the newspaper, and he says, there was no pictures of Mac Brazel on the front page of the Albuquerque newspapers, and I did something Kevin Randle didn't do. I went and looked at them. I have copies of those in my files. It says on the front page, Mac Brazel, bigger than life. Korff says, Mac Brazel never appeared on the front page of any paper in the region. I have a picture of Mac Brazel on the front page of the Roswell Daily Record from July 10th. So what he's saying is flat out wrong. He's taking my words, twisting them around into something he wants to criticize, and said Kevin Randle is wrong on these things. One other quick point, if I might. In describing how Jesse Marcel Jr. learned about the flying saucer, in one of the books it says Jesse Marcel asked his dad what it was, and his dad said it was a flying saucer. And Korff says, no, they didn't use the term flying saucer then. He couldn't possibly have said it. I don't know where Korff got this idiotic idea. The term flying saucer came out of June of 1947, but the front page of the Roswell Daily Record says, Roswell Army Airfield captures flying saucer in Roswell region. So clearly they used the term flying saucer in July of 1947, and they used it in Roswell. I don't know where Korff gets these incredibly stupid ideas, but he runs with them.
He makes them up. I mean, that's the only logical thing that I can come up with, is that he wants to believe his tripe so badly that, hey, he quite honestly, Kevin, I believe he lives in his own little universe. Hey, I want to thank you so much.
Not a problem, and if you need anything more on the great Cal Korff, just let me know. I have carloads of it.
You'll be back on the round table, Kevin. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, next, coming up, we are joined by a gentleman from the blogsite.com from the Czech Republic, although he resides here in the United States. Now, he asked me, I know, of course, who he is, but he asked me if I had any objection to him going under a pseudonym, because he does not wish to be targeted by Cal Korff, and I had absolutely no problem with that whatsoever, although, like I said, I do know his real name, but he's going to go under the same pseudonym or handle that he uses on the blog site, which is FN, or Foxtrot Nancy. FN, thank you so much for joining us. I guess the first question I have is, how did you become involved in this entire controversy, for the want of a better term?
I was somewhat, involved with the UFO and the alien thing back in the 90s, and I actually read his Billy Meyer book, and I saw some interesting things in there. Actually emailed him a few times, talked with him and such, and then he vanished. And then in 2000, of course, he comes back as a terrorism fighter, et cetera, et cetera. And then I found that blog, and that blog just entertains me to no end. And I started to look into what he was saying. And the more I looked into it, the more I found that things weren't adding up. And I suppose I'm anti-Korff, but I'm pro-entertainment. And
so this is basically, this hasn't been personal with you, though.
No, it hasn't been personal with me at all. He annoys me, as he does a lot of other people, but no, it's not been personal.
Well, have you now some of the material that you and I have discussed off the show prior involved the way he has gone after people behind the scenes in an attempt to sabotage them, stalk them, absolutely do everything in his power to, ruin people's lives. So what are your conclusions or feelings about that?
Well, most of it's untrue. He likes to float a lot of, I've called the police, there's police action, I've done this, I've done that. In fact, he did it to me. I joined his website a couple of years ago under suhappykalkorff.gmail.com, and immediately he sent me an email and said, I know where you work, I have photos of you, expect a visit from the police. Well, he couldn't and he wouldn't. So I feel that most of it is just blowhard threats and such, but I do know that a couple of people were phoned, or at least their employers were phoned at work, or the threat was made, so they had to do a little preemptive strike there to make sure they knew that this guy's a nut in the Czech Republic, et cetera, et cetera. So I'd say 90% or more is threats, unfounded.
Empty, in other words, empty threats.
Yes.
But in an attempt to, I don't think I'd be out of line if I suggested to cyber terrorize someone.
No. In fact, he is listed on a cyber terrorist sort of website that we have nothing to do with at all. We had nothing to do with him being listed. His activities made that happen.
Okay, let me ask you something else. And originally, because as much as this show currently is being absorbed by the several people that I've already talked to and the several more that I'm going to be talking to, there were some allegations that Korff, while in Prague, went out of his way to defraud some people and, in essence, steal some technological devices. Now, can you give a little insight on that? Because I know that you personally have been very much involved in this investigation and situation. What can you tell me about that?
I can tell you a bit about it. I can't pronounce the guy's name, but there's a gentleman in the Czech Republic who's very well known for helping folks, underprivileged and such, and Korff put a couple of pictures up on his website that showed him signing a contract, a 5-year contract, to be something like the CTO, the CFO, those terms he likes to throw around.
Chief Financial Officer?
Yeah. And evidently, he went to an Apple dealer. He's very pro-Apple. He went to an Apple dealer and got some Apple products that he wanted to start selling, unbeknownst to this guy, that he wanted to start selling cheaper than like Apple World or who's ever there. And he said, don't worry, I'm not going to pay for this right now. It's under this gentleman's name. And he's very well known, and evidently they bought off on it and went to this guy, and he said, I don't know what the heck you're talking about. And it's still to this date unpaid, and from what F1 Racer, somebody that you may talk to, and some other people in the Czech Republic have uncovered, there is an ongoing police investigation of Korff regarding that situation. Hopefully you'll get to a couple of guys who have even more detailed information about that, but it does seem as though that he defrauded this very well-loved gentleman in the Czech Republic to try to get Apple material and phones and such and iPods to then make them available for super cheap there to make a name for himself. Supposedly, the company's name was .Jos. That's a pseudonym barely of Kal Korff's mother.